Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. It's Charlene Lee, and I am excited today to talk about a topic that has been sort of floating around in the back of my mind, which is how are we going to be replatforming our our enterprise applications and our all of our various systems because of AI. And if you are using any of these platforms, like excuse me, like Salesforce, Oracle, SAP. These are essential platforms to help your organization run. They have a lot of your data, your operations depend on them, everything from marketing, sales, service, your finances, your HR. These are all essential systems to your organization. I personally use HubSpot, for example, as a small business. So, again, these are things that we are in all the time. And so I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive today into how these platforms are changing because of AI. And so we'll talk a bit about that. So just to get started, first of all, I would love for you to introduce yourselves. And then also, what tool do you wish you had an AI front end for instead of the buttons and the menus and the drop downs that you have to live with every day? Because let me just share what I'm talking about today. This is the reality of what we have to live with. We typically live in something looking like this. So what if you never had to log into Salesforce again? What would your life look like? Because nobody has ever said, "Oh, I love working with my enterprise systems. It is such a joy. It's exciting. I can't wait to get into all of those systems and to get my work done." So, what do you wish you could have an AI interface on that you could just talk to, get all your work done, and never had to see a dashboard again, never had to see an input form, never had to like sit there and go through all the steps to generate a report for. You could just have a prompt. So share those. I would love to hear what you're talking about. And let me just share also. Thank you, Jay, for sharing the slides. You can get the slides here at replatforming-AI. And also, I just want to share that. Let's see, get slides at, here we go. Just put those into the comments there too as well. So what I really want to talk about today is just how do we actually do this? What does it look like? And my definition for replatforming AI is this: it's shifting from these legacy interfaces and workflows to things that are AI native or AI augmented systems. And I want to lay out just what that looks like today, how it's beginning to evolve, the role of AI agents, and also how we're going to start seeing AI native platforms come in and potentially challenge some of these big players in the space. So we're still very much in early days. So some of this that I'm talking about is hypothetical, but we're beginning to see how this world will evolve. And I do want to talk about how you can ask some really smart questions about thinking about this space and also potentially influencing how it develops. Because oftentimes we sit back and think, well, we just got to wait for these platforms to innovate. No, right now is when you can go to them and say, hey, I wish the platforms would do this. Or you talk to startups and you say, can you build this? Because these are the things that don't work. I would love to have this instead. So it's a very dynamic space. And I want to just stretch what is possible out there and encourage you to be an active participant in the development of all these amazing tools. Because frankly, I feel like we deserve to have the best tools available for us to get our work done and to serve our customers better. All right, so let me just give an analogy that we're all very familiar with, and that is how mobile developed. So initially, we had mobile on top of these desktop apps, and then we have mobile first. So you're developing on the mobile first, and then you have some web backup, and now we have mobile only apps. So this is how mobile has developed over time. And it's not to say that the previous two versions don't work anymore. Of course, we have mobile and desktop working seamlessly together. They're syncing back and forth perfectly. We have some applications that are definitely mobile first and a little bit of back end onto the web. or onto desktops, and then a few quite amazing platforms are working mobile only. So that's an analogy of how we're developing. We're not going to see a lot of AI native platforms right now because we're still trying to figure out just what AI looks like and how to use it. And frankly, the adoption of enterprises of AI is going slower than a lot of the companies here in Silicon Valley wished. So that user interface is really where the action is going to be at right now. So before I go into how it's going to develop, I got this great question from Jay. Who should own the front-facing applications? Great question. Right now, the traditional place is that these platforms want to own it. So we have Salesforce with Agentforce. You have ServiceNow with all of their applications. SAP has had long time a series of ecosystem partners. So we see all of these platforms uh, stemming the tide of the startups trying to eat their lunch by just having them, hey, just come onto our platform and we'll make it easy. You can get access to this. So this AI application layer is jointly owned by these smaller companies sitting on top of the platform. But increasingly, I'm feeling like there are companies or organizations who are saying, well, look, this is my data. We're using the platform and we're using this AI interface level. I'm sorry, AI application level that is coming into on top of it. So who owns it, I think, is less important than who actually can get access to the data, who actually understands your needs as an organization and as individuals in that organization to be able to work the way you want to. So we'll get into this a bit more. But again, I think the ownership part is less of an issue than how it actually works and who is able to deliver that. It'll become very interesting with the whole AI native platforms because the question becomes at what point do some companies depart from their legacy systems and say these AI applications that are AI native actually do a better job than my legacy platforms? The reality is switching your enterprise platforms is long and hard, especially as you have developed these legacy systems. Having to pull all of that data out and re-platform onto a new place, very, very difficult to do. Very, again, has to create so much more value. And I think these legacy platforms are going to put up a really good fight to try to keep that from happening. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. All right. So let's see. And Jay just says, hey, these big players are people like SAS, Oracle, SAP, and Google. And again, they're all circling on all of these players are essential parts of your entire enterprise collaboration and platforms that you have. So let me go back to just a couple more slides here. So this is where I think the three paths, similar to the mobile paths of what replatforming will look like. So first of all, we will just have AI as the interface to your legacy platforms. Oop, I have a typo here. An AI as the workflow engine, and then we have AI native platforms. So let me just go through each of these pretty quickly, and then I'll keep going. And again, if you have questions, by all means, please ask them inside of comments, and hopefully we should have plenty of time to get to them. So first of all, AI as the interface layer. So this is just laying chat on top of your existing tools. So it's using natural language to pull any reports that you want, to go and update fields, to trigger workflows. So again, all of these existing tools are examples of this. So we have Microsoft Copilot, Salesforce, Agentforce with all the applications in there. Oracle NetSuite has its various chatbots. Notion has its AI sitting on top of all of your data and your files. And again, as an organization, you can use Notion AI to go and get information and pull it from across the organization and across different instances. So that's a very simple example. Again, this is here today. You can use chat as a way to interact with these platforms. I use it all the time when I'm trying to write formulas inside of Excel, for example. Instead of trying to figure out the formula and fill it out, I was just like, I want this cell to do this. And it just write the formula and it's beautiful. I haven't missed any parentheses, and I just love that. So again, AI is just taking some of the most cumbersome tasks you have to do inside of these interfaces and just making it go away because you can just use chat to figure that out. So the next example is again, this is just a graphic that I saw from Laser, and that is so you have this platform, this agent in the middle, and this is pulling from all the different places that it could be sitting in. And this is where it's becoming much more interesting, where AI is not just the interface to your that one particular platform, but it's now sitting and looking at multiple platforms as well. So this is where AI is a workflow engine. And you have an agent sitting there in the middle with knowledge across all these different platforms and is actually taking action. It's no longer just summarizing. So it can look across all of these different platforms. It can take a particular use case and be able to pull them together. It's using a lot of agents, AI agents, to do a lot of these multiple step tasks that require you going across the different platforms. So, for example, if you're trying to do sales outreach or marketing outreach, having to tap into multiple platforms, not just the CRM, but also into your email, into scheduling, these are all things that can be automated. Onboarding your employees, having to reach into different systems and be able to pull the relevant information and to customize that for each employee is really interesting. Scheduling, reporting, you can think about all these different use cases. So there are a couple examples that are out there right now. I just saw that Alta had raised around a small startup. They have these agents that are working in revenues and sales development resources. They're pretty inexpensive. They're AI agents, AI workers, and they can sit on top of these CRM systems, but also tap into multiple areas. And they're basically just, again, replacing and changing the workflow. And then you have Microsoft. They've been announcing various autonomous agents to streamline HR workflows, everything from managing rewards and recognitions to, again, onboarding and recruiting. So this is, again, rethinking how your workflows can work differently with AI agents on top of them. And again, just changing the interface so that you as a human don't have to go there and push all the buttons. And then we have AI native platforms. These are built from the ground up. And so they're not an add on, they're not an enhancement on top of legacy engines. They're not sitting there trying to be that cohesive glue and connection as an agent between these different platforms. They're built for those particular workflows from the ground up. And so the thing here is that the agent is the platform and it's not just the dashboard being the platform. So just some really early examples that I found. So there's a company called Navina. They act as an AI co-pilot for doctors, and it can go and tap into the patient records and suggest diagnoses. There's an interesting tool out there called Onyx, and this is like the holy grail that you have a personal assistant or a proactive chief of staff that can go across all of your different documents and platforms and pull and anticipate all the things that you have to do in your day because it understands your calendar, it understands the meetings that you have coming up, and just gets you ready to do the things that you have to do in the day. So those are just three ways that we can see replatforming happening. And I want to go now into a little bit more detail about what this could potentially look like. So the thing is where replatforming is heading. So when you don't have any legacy platforms to maintain, especially if you're a new company, a small company, or a startup, I think those are the places where AI native platforms will start coming up. Again, this is the place where innovation has always happened. When startups have a really hard time breaking into large enterprises with established legacy platforms, they've got to go and innovate with all these smaller companies where, again, more nimble, may not have that legacy. It's the problems may be simpler, but that's where we can see these AI native platforms starting to come up. And again, the enterprises are just going to replatform very gradually. They'll layer AI over legacy systems. So the way that the large platform companies are approaching it is absolutely the right way. How do we put AI interfaces? How do we insert AI into different parts? How do we slowly replace that cumbersome uh, dashboard that we've always had and be able to be much more nimble and responsive to the particular individual needs that each person has? And so I do believe that as we go forward here, that platforms are going to compete on the access to the data, and also how open will they be with the APIs to allow more and more of these AI tools and agents to get access to that? Because you want that openness as a user, as a customer, but you also want to be careful and make sure that the data is secure. Again, that's what a platform really does really well. It makes sure that the data is secure, it's accessible, there's governance across it, and that also that the agents have really good functionality. And then also, how do you personalize and simplify? This is what the holy grail is that you can have all of these things in the same package, and the platforms are going to be competing on levels of greater openness and accessibility and greater functionality with agents. And then also, how do we just simplify and make it more personal at the same time? So I do believe the competition is going to be much more now going to the future about what that AI experience is going to be. What is it going to look like? It's going to be less about competing around the data, because the data is just that layer there. I will be thinking about how the middleware exists within an organization, about tying all of these platforms together with the agents that sit in between it. So overall, how does AI change the experience? So when you're talking to these platforms, talking to the startups, describe for them the type of experience that you want. Explain the frustrations and the problems that you want to overcome, and demand the experience that you are due. Because again, they're doing a lot of research. They're trying to figure out what is it that customers want. And the more that you can be explicit about the experiences that don't work and the experiences that you do want, the more that they will be able to develop the products that meet those needs. All right, let's see. We got any questions we have here? And John is asking, yeah, can you get a recording of this webinar? Again, which I think you're on LinkedIn. Yes. So this recording is going to be available on LinkedIn. Just follow the same link and it'll still be there. And you can get the slides. Yes, you got them too as well. Let's see. Jay has said here that backward compatibility would be a major differentiator. I absolutely. I think in any sort of backward capability, forward, sideways, again, the more connectivity you can have, the better off you're going to be. I remember Jeff Bezos writing this amazing memo, the API memo at Amazon. It was, I don't know, 15 years ago. He said, from now on, everything will be accessible through API. I don't want to see anything developed that doesn't include an API. So it was this amazing sense of opening up the platform. And I think the same way here today is, if you can't use an agent, like, everything has to be agentified so that we can use agentic AI against any part of the platform. Anybody can build an agent to be able to get access to the platform and build an AI experience. So that is sort of the new API parameters and imperative that is out there. Make it agentic so that the experience can be as strong as it can. All right, let me just go on to just a couple last slides here. I'm just watching the time. Great. So a couple takeaways. When you're talking to these vendors, don't ask, does this tool have AI? Be more specific and think about going beyond just automation and AI agents to rethinking the architecture. So I'll go into greater detail about the three types of questions to ask. The first one is, what parts of our workflow could an agent do? And then the second one, is the interface built for a human? In other words, click downs and buttons and things like that. Or is it built for prompts? Is it built for AI to engage with it, for agents to engage with it? And then finally, how do we rethink the architecture of the way that we are putting all of our backends together? So first of all, let's talk about AI as the interface. So, and doing the work. First of all, again, we talk about automation, but what are those very repetitive rule-based tasks that you can let an agent handle just across the board, being able to retrieve information across all of your systems. So AI will be the one that's going to trigger the actions and then just give you reminders automatically. So some prompts that you should be able to put in: assign unworked leads from last week to SDR Team B. This is a fun one, right? Or generate a Q1 churn report and notify the account manager. So it's letting you are prompting still as a human, but you're giving the AI assignments to go and do these things. So instead of you manually doing all these things and pushing the buttons to go do this, the AI just works seamlessly for you, understands what you're asking for it to do, goes into the various systems to execute this, and you're done. We're still far away from being able to do those types of prompts. It's not possible today. So I think we're getting better and to the point where the more we work with AI, the more connective tissue we can build into these systems, the better off we'll be. But I think this is coming within the next year or so. And there may be some systems that can do this today. I just haven't seen it yet. The second thing is that chat is the new UI. This is the new interface. So this is the whole idea. Is your system built for humans or for prompts? So the legacy user interface, again, are these clicks, these tabs, these filters we have to use, and an AI native user interface instead is just a prompt bar. That's it. That's all you see. And so a true prompt system understands context, understands who you are, understands the work that you do, and also the intent that you have. So therefore, you don't have to go through all these different things. It already has that stored in its knowledge. So, for example, show the top 10 customers by lifetime value. It understands which are my top customers. It understands work that I do. I would draft an email to follow up with the late renewals. People aren't renewing. It uses my language, understands which renewals I'm talking about, understands what late means. So it has context to be able to do that kind of work for me. And then the last one is that it's an architectural shift. So AI isn't an add-on, it's the place where you start from. And so when you look at all of your systems, you look at all the different tools and platforms that you are, how do we start collapsing them and start rethinking this from scratch? How, if we could build it from scratch, if we didn't have legacy systems, how would we build this? So this is a really interesting exercise because if you could redefine the roles, if you could redefine and focus on the intent of what you're trying to do and not focus on the tools, what could you build? And so this is the most interesting question I think out there. And so some of the questions that could be out there are, for example, um, if we had if we have currently 4 different tools and platforms to build a campaign, what would one look like with one AI agent managing the campaign from the beginning? Instead of having to compile reports manually, what would an AI generative narrative with insights look like? And so it's really thinking about how do you build these agent driven processes from the ground up? How do you build on a modular level? And say to the platforms, hey, can you build this for me? Could you rethink how we do this? Or talk to a startup and say, if we could just wave our magic wand and build this again, what would it look like with AI at the center? So I think this is the question. I think that's the most important one to think about. And I think that's all I have for today. Again, I think one of the interesting things around us is that we tend to be limited by the world that we see around us. So what I'm encouraging to do is to say, how could we exercise more curiosity about how could things work differently? And how do we exercise greater imagination and share that with our technology partners to say, if we could reimagine what our platforms could look like, what they could do for us, what could that possibly be? And that's the conversation I encourage you to have with people. Again, it may just be right now, how do we use AI as that chat interface? How do we use agents to more cohesively bind all of these platforms together into a cohesive interface? But I also would say take the opportunity to say, if we could have AI at the center, how would we reimagine what these platforms could look like? So that's what I have for today. Let's see, I'm just looking at the questions that we have. A lot of comments here from Jay. Uh, let's see. Here's a great question. Would the major players focus on creating unique non-replicable software or focus on applying inter-application, well, again, inter-application connected tissues? My sense is that the unique unreplicable software is that interconnection. It's the ability to tie these things together to be more helpful, more useful, more valuable with those interconnections, with the agents that bridge across all of these platforms. That is what is unique. And what's so interesting is we have this thing called vertical AI that's coming out, where the applications are very specific to a particular industry, a particular problem that somebody has. And it's no longer saying, hey, one size fits all. You just have to put up with it. And instead, because AI is so easy now to use and the problems are so specific, you can get very granular in meeting the needs of a particular type of user. And to the point where that personalization again, with no code applications, I can go and personalize that with AI, not even have a application developer on the team or at the platform to have to go and do that personalization for me now. I can just use the interface and it'll learn over time how to better serve me. So I think that is going to be the differentiation is how you can collaborate and integrate as many platforms as possible, and also how quickly can you learn about me and the ways that I want to work that is highly individual to me, my team, my department, my organization, and being able to do that at scale without, again, a lot of things breaking. This is still years away, I believe, but we're beginning to see this develop again, slowly, surely, with those phases that I talked about. And so, again, I encourage you to actively prod, push, cajole your technology partners to build the interfaces that you need and want to in the ways that you want to work. This is a time where you have a lot of influence to be able to have those conversations with them to imagine what the world looks like. All right, what I have for next time, I will be taking next week off and I will be back in 2 weeks. And this is the topic I was going to talk about today, and my scheduling got a little bit mixed up. But in 2 weeks, I'll be talking about the top questions that CEOs and their boards should be asking about AI. I've been hearing, it was fascinating. I was talking to somebody who said, boards just aren't asking about AI. They don't know anything. And frankly, I don't want them to ask anything about AI because they don't know anything. So they're asking really bad questions. So I want to just talk about this. And if you're a CEO or a board, please join me in 2 weeks. Encourage people to come and watch this, or even share some of the learnings and just come and help. And if you do have particular ideas and ways that you have worked with CEOs and boards that have been very effective, please reach out to me, share with me. I'm accessible through all the various social platforms and on my website. I would love to hear from you, how things are going. Again, it's how I learn and how I can, again, incorporate that learning back into these live streams. Thank you again for joining, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.